everybody, welcome to Football Feedback Summer Edition, and what a big week it has been so far in the world of football. Of course, the announcement of the Docklands on Saturday here in Melbourne, it has finally got the go-ahead, but I suppose the latest bit of news to hit the AFL is that Wayne Carey is generally going to be the Roo boy for the rest of his life. Today he stitched up a contract which will see him through till 29 years of age, and as far as Wayne's concerned, that should be about the end of his football career. Talking the end of football career is one man who's still going, even though he's beyond 29 years of age, and I really look forward to having him here every Monday night with me.
Thank you very much, Rob. I feel great after that.
Do you? Well, I just enjoy having you with me, even though you're beyond 29.
It's great to be here. Yes.
Thanks, mate. Let's move right along. Andrew Maher.
Hello, Rob. Great to be here again for our last of the pre-season editions of Footy Feedback. There's a touch of melancholy about tonight for us.
Sentimental time.
Absolutely. I'd be interested, Wayne Carey signing a deal to 29 and saying that might see him out. If he's making $350,000 a year at the age of 29 and they're prepared to continue paying him a fair bit of money afterwards, I don't think he'll be giving it away too quickly.
Exactly right. Yep.
Gentlemen, I mentioned earlier at the top of the show that the big news of the week, of course, was the Docklands. Our guest, first up tonight, from the St Kilda Football Club, Andrew Plympton, no stranger to viewers on the Optus Footy Show, but welcome, Andrew, because you've had a pretty busy schedule today, and we appreciate you taking some time out and talking about Docklands yet again.
Pleasure. Nice to be here, Rob.
Let's get the ball rolling. Having a look at some of the documentation that I managed to have a look at in the lockup on, I suppose is what we can call it, on Saturday morning. The documentation which you have in front of you here, Mr. Maher, contains umpteen pages which you have had some trouble reading.
It's fairly detailed content there. Bottom line for you, Andrew, what's the feeling around St Kilda about what was put to the clubs on Saturday morning?
I think it was the best presentation the AFL has done in my time with the AFL, which is either as AFL director or as club president is 5 years. I mean, I congratulate the AFL on the way they put it to the clubs. We've been working on this with the AFL for 4 or 5 months now, so a good deal of the overview of the information was known to us. So very much to our view as expected.
Was there any sort of more information that could have been given to St Kilda before the meeting? Because you and Hawthorn are in a particularly sort of delicate situation with the whole proposal.
Well, I think not. I mean, we have been working with an accounting firm, Cooper's Library and Consulting, a subcommittee within our club, the AFL, the accountants acting for the AFL, the finance part of the AFL. So it's been, for us, contact with a lot of people over a reasonable length of time.
Before we go much further, let's have a look at some of the key Docklands details and issues that have been tabled, and as we can have a look and follow these down here, Justin, you can chime in here if there's something there you see might snap your brain into action as from a player's perspective.
Yeah, there's some interesting things there.
I think the deal, we say it's a sweetheart deal, but $30 million for virtually a $300 million building. I think that's what a lot of people are having trouble coming to grips with. How come you're only paying $30 million for something worth that amount of money? But without getting too technical, Andrew, at the same time, whoever the developer is, in a nutshell, virtually he is receiving, I think in some instances, 15% and 10% thereof, the running costs of the games, which is getting him his dollar factor back that way.
Yes, I think the interesting point with this is that $30 million effectively gives ownership, which then transfers to the AFL in 40 years' time. So it gives the AFL the priority lease arrangements on the ground. The ownership then rests with the AFL insofar as 40 years after the construction that they have complete control of it. 52,000
people, Justin, they say can be seated in this particular stadium, which limits it to the clubs that can probably play there. We're talking St Kilda, we're talking Hawthorn. Collingwood have now joined the ball game virtually. They're the 3 clubs, and we've even got to the point of view where Hawthorn are even saying, well, hang on, don't give up on Waverley yet. We still might get someone who'll come in and take over Waverley. So it's developing that way. But do you believe that perhaps it is over and done with Waverley?
It would seem to me that it is. I've met with the breakaway group who have got this latest proposal. I see other proposals that are now starting to emerge. I guess my first comment to the breakaway group was, would have liked to heard from you guys 2 or 3 years ago. I think
it's 5 years since you've been at Waverley.
Yes, yes, we moved there in 91, 92 insofar as they're called shandy years. We played, inverted commas, our blockbuster games, but I think we're averaging 91 crowds of 52,000 at Waverley. It's an appropriate number, isn't it? Fell away to 47,000 still for 7 games in 1992. And then we tapered off when we moved out there full-time, and of course our results where we were positioned on the ladder had a lot to do obviously with crowds. But we've got our averages back up this year to over 30. I guess the interesting comment, we played 4 Saturday night games out there, and our average for that was over 40,000. With Essendon 47, and against the Blue Boys, I think 45,000. So it's been interesting how we've been working Waverley, and Saturday night is the niche of the market I've been keen to go after as the rest of the board, and it was successful.
Is there anything? Oh, sorry, mate. Is there anything that could be done to Waverley that could possibly see St Kilda staying there in preference to the Docklands?
Well, there have to be some substantial changes to the ground. I mean, we had put up some time ago a view that, as the IFL had been saying, this dish-like stadium versus a bowl-like stadium effectively allows for inferior viewing when you consider other grounds, particularly the MCG. I think bottom line also is patrons these days are expecting more out of football grounds. The reason Optus Oval has made the developments it has, the reason Cardinia Park is putting in more seating. We're looking for the year 2000. The answer quite clearly by the year 2000, people are going to be quite clearly looking for better comfort than they are in 1996.
Now, in terms of those sorts of issues, Andrew, I'm still a little bit confused about the 5,000 unreserved seats and how that relates to the unreserved seating, I suppose, because from a novice's point of view, I suppose, to an extent, in relation to this, I get the impression that the league may be reducing numbers at a large venue. You cram them in, but then you're putting pressure on by increasing the demand for those ticketed seats. So people may have to pay more for seats. That's the general impression I'm getting. You might
Not really, they'll have to.
Yeah. They'll have to, and that is a worldwide trend. I mean, every arena operator in the world these days, I think the US experience is probably the best experience. New stadiums going up, there were also once 110, 120,000, 10 from our evidence to be down now 60 to 70,000. Exactly what Optus Oval is doing these days, exactly what's happening in Subiaco, exactly what's happening in Adelaide. Pre-sell, if you want to have a seat for the whole season, you pay before the start of the season, cash up front, and you've got that seat for the season. Otherwise, you come along, and I think I'm right in saying this, if you don't book a seat at Subiaco and decide to come on the Sunday, you can pay up to $30 to get into the ground.
Incredible. I went along there Saturday morning, Andrew, and I really expected some fireworks from a lot of the presidents and their men, for that matter. Didn't get it. It was a fairly... there was a reasonable calm around the place. One thing I want to quote to you here, and you might be able to just explain to people at home here, in that documentation or the presentation that we have, one of the things which amused me to the point of view, based on match returns at Waverley Park, the AFL says that some clubs may be able to boost their match revenue by $850,000. Now that's the top end of the scale. There is bottom end figures as well too. How? And I think this is what I think fans have got to know about.
Yes. Well, the $848,000, that example relates to St Kilda Football Club. What the IFL has done and what the AFL and Docklands accountants have done is overlay our match returns from all areas of our operations, which is seating, membership, coteries, corporate support, signage, etc., etc. Overlaid our results at Waverley into the expected results in $1997 to the Docklands. Obviously, there's going to be additional income from reserve seats. One of the great detractions we have at Waverley Park is the inability to sell reserve seats. It's a 76,000 all-seating stadium, and if people aren't particularly happy in one reserved area, they can move along to the next. In fact, one of the great disappointments with Waverley is people tend to spread around the ground. Although St Kilda supporters, I must say, have been fairly loyal sitting on that outer wing. Areas like signage, shares of the catering facilities at the moment at Waverley Park, those catering rights go exclusively to the AFL. Increased corporate support, coterie support. I think we serve something like 2,500 meals at Waverley on the strong match days against the Carltons and Essendons. We can probably get up to 4,000 at Docklands. So it's a combination of a lot of extra things.
Yeah. Well, talking of Carlton, you've touched on it there before. Their president, John Elliott, was there, and he was the man I really expect to get some fireworks from. I got a bit of a shock, actually. Big John was quiet on Saturday morning. Didn't oppose too much at all about the Docklands, but he did praise the AFL's presentation, as you heard Andrew doing likewise as well too. Can't quite come to grips with, though, the business acumen and perhaps the dollar factor that surrounds it.
Well, the downside, the biggest issue I've raised this morning, and I'm quite public about it, is why on earth are they going to put $30 million in and not get a return on it for 50 years, when in fact they're all saying that the stadium can only be built with AFL support, and therefore you've got the control. The 30 million that's giving you the ownership gets you no return. We're better off to close Waverley. I'm delighted about that, of course, as most football lovers are. But I can't see why the 30 million's going in. And I spent a lot of time this morning trying to get a coherent answer, which I still don't have.
So not entirely a sound business proposition?
Well, it's emotional. You know, we want to own it in 50 years' time. We'll still be controlling it in 50 years' time. If you put 30 million in today, and let's say it earns 10% a year, 3 million a year, in 40 years' time that's another 120 million. You spend 150. You could have maybe put it in the bank and earned 10% on it. Just that's the significant financial matter, because I had always hoped that when Waverley goes, the money, the 30 or 40 million we get, will be put into the development of junior football, to internationalising the game, and if necessary, making sure the stability of the remaining clubs here in Melbourne stays alive.
Yes, I don't think you really need a calculator to work those sums out. They're pretty simple in the way he puts it, Andrew. But I suppose it gets back to the situation of saying, well, okay, us and Kilda are going to be behind us going to Docklands. Is it going to be Collingwood? I really think Collingwood are going to have a fight on their hands if they want to head out to Waverley.
Oh, there's no way that could possibly happen. That's got to be one of the biggest furphies of the whole thing, surely, wouldn't you imagine?
I'm very cautious to make comments about other clubs, and they're best representing themselves. So look, it's up to Collingwood to make a comment on that.
Andrew, what I'm interested in particular, with a big stadium, people love building things. As an architect, I know that people get very excited about the prospect of a new building. In the presentation on Saturday by the league, was it an emotive presentation, or was it fairly straightforward in terms of dollar figures and the results, or was there a degree of emotion attached to the excitement generated by that prospect, do you think?
Yeah, interesting. I think there was some emotion attached to it because of the things you said. It's new. It's got the latest design in the world. It's the latest technology. It's got a lot of features that the MCG hasn't got, insofar it is a complete stadium. It's a whole unit. Yeah. I mean, the great attraction with the Great Southern Stand is, of course, that everyone sits very close to the game. But of course, the MCG isn't all new. I think the great, if you like, the fatal attraction about this ground, it is a brand new, latest technology, complete, walk in, and what you see is the latest.
Your co-tenant, Ian Dicker, also had...
There was a story in the paper this morning about your club and Hawthorn seeking compensation from the AFL for the move. When do you see those talks and negotiations beginning?
I think it's, Andrew, a total package. I think what we've got to do is address all the issues that are in front of us at the moment. The club board has to make some announcement about what it intends to do, and quite clearly, obviously, at this stage, from my comments, the Docklands is an appealing alternative to Waverley Park, particularly if it isn't going to be there. As far as compensation goes, we have a 30-year contract at Waverley. I'm saying that ad nauseum. I think the healthy thing with
Does it need to be resaid, though, just to emphasise that fact?
I think it does. I mean, there was a lot of pain getting out to Waverley. I mean, it really did split St Kilda Football Club in half. I mean, we were such a strong club in the southern suburbs and a very passionate supporter base that was attached to Moorabbin. And there was a lot of pain in the club when we moved. That's been well recorded with the Keep Saints and Moorabbin people. It's only now that things are starting to work for us at Waverley. Our membership, for example, last year increased, I think, 38%. This year, as at yesterday, we're 21% up. And a lot of new members have been attracted from the area at Berwick, Cranbourne, Frankston, for the very reasons we moved to Waverley. So, yes, I mean, if we were to negotiate with the AFL regarding the Docklands, I'm sure the AFL would want us to negotiate a total package, including, say, underpinning of fall away. Of, well, those people can be left out to rot, and we'll see them in their day in court. The attitude from the AFL seems a very healthy one. Well, it is a very healthy one from mine, where he acknowledges these things.
It's interesting. The only fight that I see happening at the moment is probably between Lloyd Williams and John Elliott at the moment. Lloyd Williams is one of the names mentioned to perhaps go out and bolster this breakaway group out there at Waverley. Today he referred to Optus Oval as being a bit of a patchwork quilt. And John Elliott's answer to him was saying that I think he's got an ulterior motive, and B, he knows very little about football. We'll let the fight continue. One club that really does want to move towards the Docklands, and that of course is the Western Bulldogs. Let's hear what David Smorgan had to say.
Overall, I think Docklands is going to be great for AFL football.
Is the deal too good to be true?
I wouldn't say it's too good to be true. I think the Commission have done a very good job of negotiating what's been obviously a very difficult situation, but I think wearing an AFL hat, they've done a darn good job.
So with the interest shown from the Western Bulldogs and other clubs, is Waverley dead?
I think Waverley is all but dead, yes. I think the money there has got to be transferred into a state-of-the-art stadium.
Well, we've had some interesting conversation here on the panel while all that's been going to air. Now listen, you two guys, how would you perhaps see Wayne Jackson coming out of this?
I'll throw that one to you, H.
I think he's come out of it very well. I think
He's done a barber.
that's right. Absolutely.
He's actually
hospital handle.
I've got nothing
I think he's
to say there.
I think he's done very well over it. He obviously appears to the media and to the relevant people in the powerful positions across the clubs as a personable fella. He's willing to deal, and even in the short time the Players Association have had to deal with him, he's come across as quite personable.
It's unbelievable. He's bordering on the ridiculous, really, that we've got a chief executive officer of the AFL that people actually like. I just don't think that we as football fans...
If you like him, would you envisage perhaps, let's go a little bit forward to grand final day, and if you ask your chief executive to come out and flip the coin, would he get booed?
Well, I reckon he wouldn't at the moment. I reckon he'd get a rousing set of applause, but you might have... We were talking about this beforehand.
Like tradition, Andrew?
I have a different view. You can't break the tradition. That day when Alan Aylett walked out there and booed, I think that tradition should live on.
Now, I'm still interested in a few issues in relation to Dockland. One is that I think that the potential for gridlock around the city is a major concern. We've finally got the roads right out to Waverley.
20,000 car parks.
That's right. And one of the shortcomings of this location may well be, and I'm not sure, I'm not a traffic expert, the traffic in the city. The other one is, do the players get a say in where they park their cars? Because we desperately want the car park underneath. And they're just some of the issues that I still think need to be nutted out.
The player car park is a really interesting point to raise. I think the players at a lot of AFL venues these days are actually under potential danger when they're leaving the ground, going back to their cars. I wouldn't fancy being in a situation where after a shellacking I'll go back to my car.
We'll have really good things to say about Wayne Jackson if he can resolve the one on the car park. So I think if he can do that, then he's a magician.
I mean, the bottom line is, when you analyse what's there in front of you, 52,000 people, a lot of unreserved seating, public transport so easy to get there, something like about 32,000 they expect per, and then they're talking about 20,000 car parking spaces. I don't really see the problem because the way with your underground that's coming through the city, we're talking about 2001, so we're a little bit way down the track. Here we are right on the freeway.
I think the other interesting statistic is this, I hope I'm right on this one, 87% of all patrons that go to the MCG go by public transport. With Spencer Street Railway Station there, with the trams, and I guess with the new roads in, albeit with toll charges on them, but it's going to, I think, feed pretty well from the People Bay side, from the east, north and west. And if we say we get 60 to 70% using public transport to Spencer Street Station, I guess there's not going to be a huge overloading of cars, but these are all the matters that no doubt the experts are reviewing and attempting to resolve.
Well, we've got to move on, Andrew, but thank you for coming in. Stay with us for a moment or two until we head to the break and be a part of it. We look forward to catching up with you through the footy season. Good luck to the Saints.
Yes.
Season 1997.
Thanks, Rob. Look forward to talking about football as the year goes on.
All right, well, let's have a chat about News of the Week, gentlemen. And News of the Week, we've spoken, of course, of Wayne Carey signing his new contract, as a few of the other North Melbourne boys. You've got some news on that a little bit later on. And Dennis Pagan.